Running a business is hard enough. Don't make it harder with a dozen apps that don't talk to each other. One for sales, another for inventory, a separate one for accounting. That's software overload. Odoo is the all-in-one platform that replaces them all. CRM, accounting, inventory, e-commerce, HR. Fully integrated, easy to use, and built to grow with your business. Thousands have already made the switch. Why not you? Try Odoo for free at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, S-H-O-W, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello and welcome. How about them Braves? It's Eric Erickson here across the nation, 877-973-7425. We are a week away from the start of the Masters. I'll be there Friday the 10th. I'm still looking for somebody to get me into Berkman's Place with my kid. Shameless begging on my part. Welcome. The phone number again, 877-973-7425. I want to deviate from the raw headlines right now because I'm noticing something happening around the world. I would like to bring this to your attention. The madness on the left is festering further. Now, I need to step back for just a moment here for all of you and if you're a longtime listener, a little bit repetitive here, but you got to understand this, all of you, the basics of what's happening here. We live in postmodern times. It is the theologian Tim Keller who helped me understand what postmodernity is. In postmodernity, as opposed to modern times, in postmodernity, everything is very gray. There is no real right and no real wrong. Everything is relative. And reason has been supplanted by emotion. People no longer say, I think, they say, I feel. And your individual truth is more important than the actual truth. In postmodernity, you say things like, my truth is. One of the other things that happens in postmodern times is that the world becomes divided not on who's up, who's down, who's rich, who's poor, who's right or who's wrong, because there is no right and wrong. The world becomes divided based on something called intersectionality. Intersectionality is a Marxist, and it really is derived from Marxist political thought. It is a Marxist belief that the entire world revolves around power, not right and wrong, not morality, but power. And the way power is constructed is through language. Words have power. So, for example, in postmodernity, under intersectionality, the sky is not blue. You cannot say definitively that the sky is blue. You cannot say it definitively because there are some people who are colorblind and cannot see the blue sky. Therefore, the sky is not blue. Because in postmodernity, the exception becomes the rule and the rule becomes the exception. So it's now all police are bad and the good police officer is the exception, as opposed to police officers are good and the bad guy's the exception. No. It's the reverse. And words mean things. And the way you acquire power under the intersectional approach is you shut down other people's conversations. You shut down people's ability to speak. In postmodern times, to quote-unquote subvert the dominant paradigm, you have to force the powerful to shut up. The powerful are defined as the oppressor class. And the oppressor class is defined as the visible majority. What does that mean? Well, in the West, the visible majority tends to be white. And men, because they're more powerful than women, white men. And because Christians have truth claims as opposed to moral relativism, well, the Christian white male. And because the majority of people are heterosexual, not homosexual, the heterosexual Christian white male. And because most people are not transgender, the so-called cisgendered Christian heterosexual white male. And because most people have no disability, the person without a handicap who is cisgendered, heterosexual, Christian, white and male, that is the most oppressive person. And the person who is furthest away from those things is the most oppressed. And the most oppressed people have what are called the moral claims and the moral worth to speak. And so the oppressor must be silent for the oppressed. Now, if that sounds crazy to you, that's because it is. It comes from godless Marxism, where everything is about power and the whole world is viewed through a power lens. How this plays out in the world is increasingly a problem for the progressives in the West. In Canada this weekend, they had their Democratic Socialist gathering. I want to play for you some of the Democratic Socialist gathering in Canada, in large part one particular clip, and then I'll play you a few others. Here's what you need to know. In Canada, in the Democratic Socialist Party meeting, they provided cards. And if you were a oppressed class, you could wave your card and you could jump the line ahead of a white guy or a white woman. If you were non-white or you had a disability or you were transgendered or you were gay, you could show your card. And what it became is people trying to trump each other's cards. Now, what you need to know is the moderator is a they-them woman from Western Canada, from, I want to say, British Columbia. What you need to know about the moderator, who you'll hear speaking, and it is a woman who dresses as a man, is that she successfully led an effort in British Columbia as an elected official to defund a women's shelter, because the women's shelter would not allow in men who identified as women. And she led the effort to shut down a battered women's shelter because the battered women's shelter would not allow in trans women, that is, men who identify as women. This is how it all played out with the oppression cards.
Thank you, Delegate. There's a point of privilege on microphone 1, then we'll go to microphone 3. Go ahead, Delegate.
Yes, hello. I was standing here with my gender equity card before you called on the previous speaker. That's my point of privilege that I would like to.
I will explain the speaking order, which is fixed, that I cannot amend, which is the pro-con rotation. You can move yourself up a line that you're standing in.
I am pro, and I was.
We went.
You went pro. Con,
we went pro-con, pro, and my plan was to go con. The speaker at con mic 3 also has a speaking card.
Yesterday, this card was used in an inappropriate manner, and while I understand in Ontario we know this is equity, even if that, this was also used inappropriately in terms of gender. I want everyone to be mindful that these cards for individuals like myself who identify as a black woman have no value outside of this space.
None. She's right on that. You see that they're trying to trump the different colored cards. If you're a woman, you get one card. If you're a black woman, you get a different card. All these different cards. Let's listen to this play out a little more. This is insane.
Burnaby North Seymour, pronouns he, him. Point of information.
What information do you seek, Delegate?
Can I ask can I ask a question about executive elections to the chair?
As I understand it, what more election results we have are going to be announced at the end of the day.
I have a point of information for the Elections Committee.
The Elections Committee has gone to do balloting and they're not available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. Microphone 4, are you on a point?
Point of order, Robert Alley, he, they. My understanding as an equity-seeking delegate is that these cards are to help the chair hear equity-seeking persons and that we don't only hear from white male delegates. Now, this is my first convention, so I could be wrong, but the reason for my concern is that yesterday during the housing resolution, after a white man spoke, someone at this mic waved their equity card only to give their speaking spot to a white man. Now, that white man being a leadership delegate notwithstanding, I had lined up for a long time to discuss the housing resolution, like many others, including my fellow delegate, Akua. I just want us as a body to understand the spirit of these cards, because we are a party governed by processes and not by any sort of shock doctrine.
Shock doctrine. Wait, hang on. There's one more. This is one of my favorite ones where they get into an argument over pronouns. And by the way, you were required at this Democratic Socialist event to identify your pronouns when you spoke.
Microphone 2, are you on this resolution?
Yes.
Microphone 2, please.
My name is Mastura Tasneem. My pronouns are she, they. I'm from Ontario. Hello, bonjour. As we conduct this convention today and the past 2 days, right now there's discussions of 10,000 American men and women being sent to Iran, being deployed just to be part of this bloodbath. Canada cannot and will not be part of the legacy of blood that was built in Iraq, in Palestine, and now in Iran. This is a no-question debate. I call this question, Madam and Chairs. Thank you.
Now listen, get ready.
Your point's quite well made, Speaker. I'll again thank delegates not to call me Madam Chair or Madame la Présidente. I'm a non-binary person. My pronouns are they, them, and their. Chair is sufficient. And with regret, you've spoken to the resolution. It's not open to you to also call the question. If the question is the will of the House, someone else must call it, because we heard from you in substantive debate.
I was not aware.
Weird rule. Microphone 4.
Weird rule, weird people. Y'all, they're tearing themselves apart. They have so succumbed to this woke nonsense. So now let me jump across the pond to Great Britain, where the BBC is running a social media campaign questioning dog ownership. Why? They don't tell you this in the video, but let me explain this. The progressives in Britain are trying to accommodate radical Islamists. And in Islam, dogs as house pets is not something that is encouraged. In fact, dogs are disrespected in Muslim communities as house pets. They don't like you to have them. And in Britain, about a third of the country have dogs as house pets. And so the BBC is beginning, on behalf of the radical Islamists, to seed the campaign that maybe we should stop being so accommodating to dogs and people with dogs.
Are we all becoming too dog-friendly? From coffee shops, restaurants and retailers like IKEA, Zara and John Lewis, dog-friendly spaces are becoming easy to come by. There are 13.5 million pet dogs in the UK, and 36% of households own at least one dog. But people who are allergic to dogs or afraid of them say that the rise of these dog-friendly spaces is a concern. One woman with the extreme fear of dogs told the BBC that she feels trapped and only goes out on special occasions due to the lack of dog-free zones. She's one of the many seeking support in online groups who offer advice on how to avoid them. But a coffee shop owner whose brand is underpinned by the dogs says that they're part of the family. What do you think? Has it all gone a bit too far?
Now notice they don't bring up the Islamic issue, but it's not a coincidence that the BBC started pushing this several weeks after major Islamic leaders in the UK began to complain about the rise of dog ownership in Great Britain. And now suddenly the BBC is like, maybe we've become too dog-friendly as a nation. The progressive left trying to accommodate Islamists. Tony Blair actually has an op-ed out now on the Unholy Alliance and how it needs to be separated, the progressives from radical Islam. My friend Michael Youssef has a great book out called Unholy Alliance. In fact, if you text ENGAGE to 33777, I'll send you a link. Michael Youssef actually chronicles how progressives and Islamists are working in alliance together, and the Islamists will use the progressives until they're no longer useful and then discard them, perhaps violently so. It's a great book. It's called Unholy Alliance by Michael Youssef. The left in the West is beginning to tear itself apart, and it's not just there. It's also here now, where Democrats announce they may need a white heterosexual Christian male to save them and the Progressive Alliance as this country refuses to go insane like all the others.
Running a business is hard enough, so why make it harder with a dozen different apps that don't talk to each other? One for sales, another for inventory, a separate one for accounting. Before you know it, you are drowning in software instead of growing your business. This is where Odoo comes in. Odoo is the only business software you'll ever need. It's an all-in-one, fully integrated platform that handles everything. CRM, accounting, inventory, e-commerce, HR, and more. No more app overload. No more juggling logins. Just one seamless system that makes work easier. And the best part, Odoo replaces multiple expensive platforms for a fraction of the cost. It's built to grow with your business, whether you are just starting out or already scaling up. Plus, it's easy to use, customizable, and designed to streamline every process, so you can focus on what really matters, running your business. Thousands of businesses have made the switch, so why not you? Try Odoo for free at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Speaking of the insanity in Canada, the Canadian healthcare system, in an effort to save money, it is become a death cult. It is encouraging medically assisted suicide for everybody. If you're depressed, they encourage you to get suicide. If you're elderly and you get hurt, they want you to commit suicide. MAID, medical assistance in dying. Listen to this video. This is from an 80-something-year-old woman in Canada. It has gone viral on the internet.
I am 84 years old, and a year ago, an amazing thing happened. When I got out of bed one morning, I was suddenly in excruciating pain, so much so that my daughter came running in from another room. She called an ambulance. Off I went to the Vancouver General Hospital, and I was approached by a young lady doctor who the very first words out of her mouth is, "We would like to offer you MAID." I was taken aback. That was the last thing on my mind. I just wanted to find out why I was in pain. I did not want to die. And I was a month in hospital, came home and recuperated nicely enough that I could take some trips. Off I went last year to Cuba, before the problems today in Cuba. And then just recently, I have been to Mexico and Guatemala. So my recovery has been amazing, and there was no need for MAID to even be suggested.
Except it's being suggested even for depression now in Canada. Crazy. Y'all, I would be depressed if I ever ran out of hot water again. And thanks to my Rinnai tankless water heater, I don't have to worry about that. Neither would you. No fights among your kids over bath time when there's no hot water left in the tank. Yank the tank and get a tankless water heater from Rinnai. All you do is go to talkingtankless.com. They've made it real easy for you. You can click the button, talk to a Rinnai professional. They are well priced. I need to put up, I guess, on Instagram or something, the picture of mine. It's a small, about the size of a carry-on bag, and the water flows through it, and our hot water is phenomenal. It never runs out in our house. If you've got a house, you can yank your tank out, put in a tankless water heater, never run out of hot water again. You go to talkingtankless.com. Talk to a Rinnai professional about a tankless water heater, talkingtankless.com. The Rinnai water heaters, the tankless water heaters, they keep you supplied with hot water forever, and the fighting among your kids over bath time goes away. TalkingTankless.com. TalkingTankless.com. Yank your tank. Get a Rinnai tankless water heater.
Running a business is hard enough, so why make it harder with a dozen different apps that don't talk to each other? One for sales, another for inventory, a separate one for accounting. Before you know it, you are drowning in software instead of growing your business. This is where Odoo comes in. Odoo is the only business software you'll ever need. It's an all-in-one, fully integrated platform that handles everything: CRM, accounting, inventory, e-commerce, HR, and more. No more app overload. No more juggling logins. Just one seamless system that makes work easier. And the best part, Odoo replaces multiple expensive platforms for a fraction of the cost. It's built to grow with your business, whether you are just starting out or already scaling up. Plus, it's easy to use, customizable, and designed to streamline every process, so you can focus on what really matters: running your business. Thousands of businesses have made the switch, so why not you? Try Odoo for free at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Hello, America. Again, we're a week away from the Masters. I can't wait. It's going to be gorgeous. Although I did see pictures, some of these azaleas already blooming. It should still be gorgeous over there. In any event, the phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, text ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, everything you need. Remember, if you click the first link this week, all the Holy Week posts in the morning are not behind the paywall. Everybody can get them. Congratulations to Gabe Kaminsky, fantastic investigative reporter at the Free Press, who has been hired by CBS News. Now let's go to Lynn, calling from Dayton, Ohio. Lynn, I was on the phone last week with Larry on WHIO, and it was still in the 20s there. Has it warmed up at all?
Yes, it has. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, I can.
Very good. Eric, earlier I heard you say that you don't understand why some people are unable to believe Donald Trump can win this war. Eric, some people don't want Donald Trump to win this war. It's not a question of being unable to believe. They don't want him to win. They don't want him to succeed in anything.
Yeah. Oh, I actually think that's absolutely right. Yeah, if he wins, it's going to help the polling in the midterms for the GOP, and God forbid the GOP do well, among other things, that they simply do not want the president. If that means rooting against American soldiers, they will.
It's sad but true. It's been jokingly said that if Trump could cure cancer, they would be against that too, and I do believe that also.
I do think so. Honestly, if Donald Trump came out today, if he really wants to win the midterms, Donald Trump should come out today and say, folks, breathing is good. Everybody should breathe. Just breathe all the time. The Democrats would hold their breaths until you wipe them out.
That's funny.
It's just,
sir, I love your show.
Go ahead.
I love your show. I don't always agree with you. Sometimes you even make me a little angry, but I got to say you're always right.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it. Happy Easter to you. See, I'm always right, he says, even though I make him mad and he disagrees with me. Clearly, my wife needs to hear that phone call. 877-973-7425. Okay, I want to move on because I spent the first half hour here on the Democratic or the progressive insanity of the world. In Canada, the progressive Democratic Socialists handed out equity cards, so you're literally allowed to cut the line at their convention if you are non-white or you're trans or what have you. They had one poor guy. I don't know that he was really trans so much as he was a failed heterosexual who showed up and it had long hair and he looked like a dude with long hair and he announced that he was trans and he identified as a they, them. And I'm just like, dude, you're just bad at being a guy. That's what it is. And he was very upset that someone who was less intersectional than him got to cut in front of him to complain about equity. And in this country, Democrats are starting to realize they have problems with the wokes, and they want to save the progressive experiment. I kid you not. This is from Axios. It is in the show notes. This is the headline from Alex Thompson and Holly Otterbein. Some Dems 2028 strategy, they need a straight white Christian man. Sorry, Pete Buttigieg and James Tallarico. Some top Democrats are quietly debating a fraught question: whether the party's best bet for winning back the presidency in 2028 is to nominate a man. A man, baby! Perhaps a straight white Christian man. Their fear, divulged with dismay in group chats, cocktail parties, and increasingly in public, is that parts of the electorate are too biased to support a woman or other diverse candidate for president. Former First Lady Michelle Obama fueled such talk recently, saying the United States is not ready for a woman. Democratic strategists have put it bluntly, with several saying a version of "it has to be a white guy." In other words, ladies and gentlemen, what the Democratic Party is saying is that Americans are too racist, too bigoted. The Democrats really hate their fellow Americans. Gavin Newsom's wife, who wants to be called first partner, it is one of the most pretentious and obnoxious things. This is another reason. Gavin Newsom's wife is another reason he will not be the Democratic nominee for president. First of all, they want a straight Christian white male, so Gavin Newsom doesn't qualify. And at the same time, Gavin Newsom has this wife who says some of the most belittling and obnoxious things I think I have ever heard come out of a presidential caliber spouse's wife. Remember Obama and the bitter clingers and then Hillary Clinton and the deplorables. They were the presidential candidates. Gavin Newsom's wife actually gave an interview, and she said that when Gavin Newsom and she went to Alabama, she insisted on taking the kids with them so that they could witness bigotry and racism firsthand. You think I'm making that up? She actually said this, that when she took the kids there. This is from 2023, where she does a tour. They talk about doing a tour of red states, and she wanted the kids to be able to go to the red states, the less educated states, and see bigotry up close and personal. She gave this interview in 2023 with, of all people, Jen Psaki, who had been the White House press secretary for Joe Biden, and she was serious. This was not something out of the blue that she made up. This is not something that I have made up. This is something that this woman actually believed. She needed to take her kids to red states, particularly Alabama, to see the bigotry and the racism firsthand. I was actually kind of shocked that she lacked the sense enough to know that maybe this isn't something that you should say. You don't believe me on this one. Hang on a second. Let me pull this up for you. I've got the audio right here. I was trying to get the video and couldn't, but here, listen to this from Jen Psaki with Gavin Newsom's wife.
You took your 4 kids on this trip. You're here in Alabama now. Why was it important to you to take them on this trip to red states and learn about the history in our country?
That's a great question. Well, I don't think, or I know for a fact, that we don't get all of this history in our schools. And it's part of, enlivening them, building their curiosity, expanding their hearts, their empathy, so that they themselves can be the change they wish to see in the world, and recognize that, we have work to do and that we have healing to do. And so that they can be, use their voices to stand up and speak out when they see pain and suffering and bullying and racism and misogyny around them. And
you want them to see it so that they know?
I do. I'm a truth seeker. They need to know the truth.
You took.
So we took our kids to Alabama so they can see the racism and the misogyny and know to speak up. This woman will be on the campaign trail with Gavin Newsom. She's made it clear she's his partner. The Democrats have a real problem. They have become so poisoned by intersectionality like other progressive groups around the world, and yet they have convinced themselves that Americans are hateful, misogynistic, racist people. The majority of Americans polled don't like Donald Trump. Understand that. Don't be mad about me telling you the truth. The majority of Americans don't like Donald Trump. They may like some of his policies, but they don't like Donald Trump. A majority of Americans. A majority of Americans also hate AI, artificial intelligence, and they're deeply skeptical of AI. When you got the AI guys out there talking about how many jobs it's going to cost everyone, they don't like AI. They like Donald Trump more than they like AI. They don't like Trump, but they like him more than AI. And the American people like artificial intelligence more than they like the Democratic Party. According to NBC News, not exactly a conservative pollster, the only thing that not Republicans or Democrats, but all American adults, the only thing all American adults hate more than the Democratic Party right now is Iran. That's right. The Democrats are almost as hated as the mullahs are. People like Trump more than they like the Democratic Party. And a majority of Americans don't like Trump, but they like him more than the Democratic Party. This is why. Because the Democrats think that you people, all of you, are racists and misogynists. And you have Gavin Newsom's wife coming to Real America from California so that she can show her kids racism and misogyny up close in person so they can learn to speak out. This is the man who decided to shut down California and then went to hang out at the French Laundry restaurant maskless while the rest of you were not even allowed to go outside to the beach in California. And his wife, who wants to be his partner, is probably even more left-wing than he is. And by the way, if you've got a spouse that is that left-wing, you're going to be a left-winger even though you try to moderate. Now, Mark Halperin, my friend and analyst, who I'm on his show once a month, he says he thinks the Democratic nominee is going to be Pete Buttigieg, because they don't have anybody else, and it's not going to be Harris. I disagree with him because Pete Buttigieg polls at about 0 with black voters, and he needs black voter support, particularly black women, to get the Democratic nomination. That's not going to happen for Buttigieg. And that's why the Democrats believe that you got to have a straight, white Christian man. The problem is, are there any white, straight Christian men in the Democratic Party? There are certainly white, straight men of the Democratic Party, but I don't know of any of the white, straight men of the Democratic Party anymore who are authentically Christian. Like James Tallarico tries to claim to be a Christian, but every time he opens his mouth to describe Christianity, he commits another 2,000-year-old heresy that we've had well settled are heresies. And even black Americans, they listen to James Tallarico, they're like, buddy, you're going to go to hell unless you repent. The black voters of the Democratic Party are not supporting James Tallarico because every time he opens his mouth, they're like, that's not a Christian, that's a heretic. The problem is the Democrats don't know what a Christian is anymore. And then they find out that Jesus is Jewish and they're like, maybe we don't want any of those people. The Democrats have embraced the intersectional wokeism of postmodern critical thinking, and they're beginning to break down just like the socialists in Canada, just like the Labour Party in Great Britain. You go woke, you go broke. That's kind of the moral of the story here, and the Democratic Party is on the verge of being bankrupt. I don't know if you guys have seen this. The Republicans right now for the midterms have close to $200 million in the bank, ready to spend it after Labor Day to help the Republicans mitigate any losses that come. Do you know what the Democratic Party has in the bank right now? According to the Federal Election Commission, the Republicans have, it's like $170 million that the GOP has right now. Democrats, $15 million. Now, the offset there is that Donald Trump can be so polarizing that the Democrats aren't that worried about the money. They think they'll be fine because it's going to be Donald Trump in a nationalized campaign. But they stand to potentially win in November and then decide they don't have to do anything differently. And that is going to kill a Democratic Party. And by the way, You know the underlying reason they want a white, straight Christian man? Because they think he can preserve the progressive politics of American Democrats. That's right. They think that if you get a non-white, non-straight, non-Christian, non-man, to be the Democratic nominee, that there will be such a backlash they won't be able to pursue their progressive agenda. But you get a straight white Christian man who's a Democrat, and, well, he can allow the progressive experiment that Americans are rejecting to go forward under the cover of being a straight white Christian man, which suggests the whole project is going to collapse.
Running a business is hard enough, so why make it harder with a dozen different apps that don't talk to each other? One for sales, another for inventory, a separate one for accounting. Before you know it, you are drowning in software instead of growing your business. This is where Odoo comes in. Odoo is the only business software you'll ever need. It's an all-in-one, fully integrated platform that handles everything: CRM, accounting, inventory, e-commerce, HR, and more. No more app overload. No more juggling logins. Just one seamless system that makes work easier. And the best part, Odoo replaces multiple expensive platforms for a fraction of the cost. It's built to grow with your business, whether you are just starting out or already scaling up. Plus, it's easy to use, customizable, and designed to streamline every process, so you can focus on what really matters: running your business. Thousands of businesses have made the switch, so why not you? Try Odoo for free at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
To the phones we go, to Chad calling from Montgomery, Alabama, where Gavin Newsom's wife wanted to see racism and misogyny. Welcome, Chad. How are you?
Well, I had to actually wear shoes to work today here in Alabama. I guess I was telling your call screen, I guess to find some real racism, I need to go up to Martha's Vineyard and take a couple of illegal aliens with me, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Or maybe Boston, or maybe Skokie, or maybe some of the other places. You know, if you actually pull up the SPLC's hate map, which is a joke, right? Their hate map is pretty much the entire northeastern corridor. I mean, it's unbelievable. I also have the unenviable position of being located approximately 3 blocks from the Southern Poverty Law Center's Taj Mahal office complex. But by the way, you will recall that the founder of the SPLC and his assistant, I'm talking Richard Morris Dees and Richard Cohen, both left in disgrace because Morris Dees' sexual harassment and discrimination.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I think they lost this past year. They lost the Asian woman who took the place as the CEO. I can't remember her name. It's Wang. Margaret Huang. And do you know she was making $467,000 a year in poverty?
Go ahead. Real quick. We got to get to commercial break here. Go ahead.
Sure. I was going to say their budget, their revenues last year, Southern Poverty Law Center, $129 million.
That's insane.
Hey, there's a lot of money in poverty.
Yep, there is. Chad, it's great to hear from you from Montgomery. He's got shoes on, folks. It's you know, by the way, kids in Alabama now in 3rd grade who are not white outperform white kids in California of the same socioeconomic class in school. In literacy. Did you know that if you're a black child in 3rd grade in Alabama who is poor, you are more likely to be literate than a poor white child in California? Pretty soon, we're going to have the black children of Alabama go on tours of California to see what it's like to not know how to read, write, or do math. That's where California is educationally. Absolutely wild to have the governor. And by the way, that interview was 2023. It wasn't super old. Just 3 years ago, that's what she was saying. And that man wants to run for president of the United States. This is the sort of reason why so many Democratic friends of mine tell me that Gavin Newsom is not going to be president of the United States, that even the Democrats don't like him and think there are massive liabilities there. And there absolutely are. There are massive liabilities. for the Democrats should they nominate a guy like Gavin Newsom just because of California's record under him. Now, let's say you live in California and it is extremely expensive to hire people to take care of your computers in California because of all the labor laws in California and the like. You can outsource to Vision Computers over here in Georgia. Any one of you nationwide can do this. And your employees will get a phone number they can call, and in 15 seconds or less, they will be able to get a technology expert on the phone with them from Vision Computers who can help them navigate their computers, figure out what's going on. And in many cases, they can even remote into your computer out there in California or wherever you live in order to fix the problem. They do email support and printer support. You're going to save yourself some money. You're not going to have the person on staff. You let Vision Computers do it, and all your employees can get the phone number per computer. It's like $199 a year. It's a phenomenal deal. Mention me, you might save some money. They also build you computers, and if you need computers built, if Vision builds the computers for you, then the tech support comes with the computer, not an extra charge. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Tell them Eric sent you. One more time, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Any one of you nationwide can take advantage of Vision Computers.